Welcome back, everyone. Here I am, finally biting the bullet, so to speak, in that I don't normally like doing videos like this, as they get all opinionated and arbitrary and such. But this video is the beginning of a short series that I'm going to call the King of Uranium Stocks. And today is going to be round one, but it's basically going to be a head-to-head look, one uranium company against a similar one, and kind of a bracket until we get down to my favorite at today's prices, my favorite risk reward uranium stock setups. So what are the rules? Well, basically I made a bracket and it started with similar equities facing off against each other and just going through them like one by one matchup and picking my favorite. Now, again, this is all personal preference, and eventually it'll get to very dissimilar stocks matching up against each other. The point is not to have my favorites get as far as they can, as there's going to be some that I like that are out early and some that I am meh about that make it through. This is just looking at on a one-to-one basis, which of the two do I prefer? And again, personal preference and weighted risk reward. So it's not just like which one has the most potential upside. I'm weighting them unfairly because I say unfairly because sometimes I'm like, oh, the risk is just too much for this one. Or sometimes I'm like, well, the reward is just too much for the other one. But this is just, again, last time I say this, personal preference. A few more things to be said. Obviously, this is not meant to offend anyone. I'm sure your favorite or many people's favorite stocks will lose at one point, and it's not really that they're bad, it's just that another one is maybe cheaper, maybe whatever, something else, in an opinion. I have tried to mostly exclude explorers. Some obviously are developers and explorers, but the pure explorers are just kind of hard to measure their value, so I mainly excluded them. Everyone could do a discounted cash flow. This is, and everyone can kind of see what they think it'll be worth. This is just a lot of judgment on risks and management teams and so on. Uh, and as always, as the market goes, as time goes on, companies finance, different strengths and weaknesses emerge, and news flow changes things. So this is the price as of the prices on this date. And yes, I am aware that this video will make me so many friends, but just remember it's intended to be fun. So we're going to start with APPIA against Mega Uranium. And I know I said I would be avoiding explorers. Honestly, I made a bracket and then I flipped it. So we're starting with here. And of the two, they're both fairly small. They're both sum of the parts type plays. And of the two, it's kind of tricky and it's kind of but I'm gonna give this slight edge to APPIA just based on a few factors, including the geologist on one side, and B, the fact that Mega, even though it's a sum of the parts type play, they have finance diluting the whole instead of breaking up the parts. So that's the reasoning there. Next, ANFEILD versus Aura Energy. Now, both of them are very small uh, feasibility stage uranium projects, or PEA, but the point is they're both kind of small and they both kind of have a speculative upside kicker. For that reason, I see them as very similar. Anfield has a better, well, slightly better jurisdiction, um, and for that reason, it also has a mill. Now, the mill is another interesting thing. It's probably not nearly ready, but I'm going to give the kicker to Anfield. FORSYS against TORO. These are two companies that have kind of gone dark, if you will, to preserve capital. Or, yes, to preserve capital. And of the two, I prefer FORSYS. I like the jurisdiction also. Well, both of them. It's fine. FORSYS has a bigger asset. For that reason, it wins. Next, we head over to Niger, and either way I go here, I'm sure to make friends. But these are two companies that have similar market caps, and when you look at the size of the projects, because they both have multiple projects, and then you look at the downside risk, I gotta go with global here. They have a cash flow, and while they may need to dilute a little bit in the near term, if they so choose, maybe they'll be able to get a debt facility, maybe not. They are slightly behind GOVIEX in terms of readiness, but really, if this thing takes much longer, should be significantly stronger. And for that reason, also for the reason the project is a lot bigger, global takes this. PLATEAU against Blue Sky. Now, these are both companies that have had to finance at not great times recently. They both have their questions, their Central America, Southern America, geopolitical questions. But due to the fact that, well, there's a number of reasons, but PLATEAU is going to win this. Blue Sky just keeps extending the warrants, and I'm against that. So PLATEAU wins. Western versus Encore. Another one that's going to make me a boatload of friends. Uh, I got to go with Encore. They both have experience management. Let's go with that. That being said, in the whole vanadium rush recently, Western didn't really progress as much as one could have hoped. Now, there's obviously a whole future, and we're talking uranium and not vanadium, and Western did have to change its name. But realistically, Encore has a better team that's had a better um, line of sight on this uranium market, and I think that gives them a clear edge. Berkeley against Peninsula. These are two companies that are technically trying to ramp up. Now, the prices today probably don't really work for either of them, and they both have some degree of questions. But I think for me, the winner is by a decent margin, Peninsula. I really have a lot more questions about Berkeley, and so Peninsula. VIMY against Boss. This one's tricky. This one's tricky for me. Both have come down recently, and both are companies that I really like, but don't have either because they're Aussie listed. If they were Canadian or North American listed, there's a good chance I would have one or both of these. So in the one versus one spirit, this is pretty tough, but at today's prices, and that's a big one, at today's prices, I prefer VIMY. Don't hate me. Bannerman against Deep Yellow. So recently, I've been hearing more talk from John Borshoff of Deep Yellow. And he said a few things about when he thinks the uranium price will move. Now, a good chunk of those things make it lucky that his project is still further away. And he said a few things that have been pointed out further. And realistically, when I look at Bannerman versus Deep Yellow, Borshov has a good track record. So does Brandon Monroe of Bannerman. Both have been in the space for a while. Both know their stuff. But when I look at what Mr. Borshoff says, what he thinks is going to happen for uranium. I look at, if he's right, would deep yellow be the thing to own? And maybe not. If he's right, I wouldn't own deep yellow now. So that's a bit of a mental quandary to get past. Versus if he's wrong and it goes sooner than he thinks, would deep yellow be the thing to own right now? And to that, I would also say probably not. Because if he's wrong and it goes soon, well, then you want to probably own something like Bannerman. So in this debate of the two, I've talked mostly about deep yellow. That being said, Bannerman for me is the clear winner, and I'll be talking more about Bannerman later. But like the project, like the readiness, and that's key, readiness here. Laramide versus AZARGA. Okay, this had to be a matchup because they both have the same types of questions regarding permitting and end price, and they're both lower cost US potential production. I prefer Laramide. It does have more resources and lower cost. Now, it is more levered, and for that reason, it is a trickier proposition. But between the two, my pick is Laramide. Now we have Denison versus UEX Corp. And before you tell me how unfair this is, because you probably know which one's going to win, but you know which one I like and know which one I'm kind of more indifferent about. If I had put Denison against Fission or NexGen, you guys would have rioted because I didn't have Fission against NexGen. And so Denison was kind of the odd company out, so to speak. And yeah, so that's enough about that. But Denison's going to win this one. There is some of the parts value in UEX, but based on the more uranium focus in Denison and the quality of the project, I got to give it to Denison. NexGen versus Fission. Now, if you had asked me last year, and a number of people kind of did, the clear of the two for me was NexGen. Now, it's much trickier. This is a lot closer than it was in the past. That's because Fission's gone down a significant amount and NexGen has gone down a bit less. Now, this is really tricky because Fission's gotten to a point where I see the value there. I still think NexGen is a better project. I still think NexGen's team is probably better. I just see a whole lot of questions regarding both, and I think they're both similar in when they might come to market. But I think it's likely NexGen comes first, and it's likely probably it makes sense for at some point if the difference is too high for NexGen to take out Fission. Now, the reason why NexGen is going to win this is because if it doesn't make sense for NexGen to take out Fission, then I think Fission has more questions. And NexGen would only take out Fission if it made sense for NexGen. So following that logic, I think NexGen is the winner here, even though at this price, it really does make me question this matchup. Next matchup, Uranium Royalty Corp against one of the physical plays for uranium. Which one is more regional based? I'm going to give it to the physical. Now, I did a video recently about Uranium Royalty Corp, and feel free to watch that if you'd like. I discuss a comparison a little bit more there. But realistically, I like the risk reward profile of the physical. And if the upside isn't enough, there is a degree of leverage that I would feel comfortable using in the physical that I wouldn't necessarily feel comfortable in using in many other equities. So physical wins, there's not as much upside potential as a number of these things, but there's still decent upside and even decenter if you were to feel comfortable using leverage. UEC versus PALADIN. The battle of the shutdown mines, so to speak. I'm going to give this one to UEC because, well, there's a number of reasons, but management team is one. Time to restart is another. And really, there's a lot of reasons why I would say UEC probably takes the cake, takes the bout here, takes the cake. And I definitely should have said takes the cake. But anyway, UEC. Energy Fuels versus UR Energy. This had to be this 1v1 here. And realistically, this, much like the big Athabasca plays, it's become so close that me picking one versus the other is very difficult and is almost like, oh, which name do I prefer? Obviously, it's not that, but it's that close. And that just speaks to when the market is this tight, there's this, all of these have the same approximate amount of vision in terms of market vision. The market will sort out the value because the money that wants to go into uranium will balance out. That being said, amongst the two, I guess I'll pick your energy, but if you were to fight me the other way, it wouldn't be too strong of conviction for me. And of course, last but certainly not least, is Cameco versus KAZATOMPROM. And this is another one where the big names, both in uranium, both have potential future production questions, but will probably be answered by high enough price and enough time to get more production online. So, which is going to win here? It's going to be Cameco because Kazatomprom, well, it's not a value destruction type thing. They have a shareholder, a very large shareholder, that has shown the willingness to increase the pace of their sales at prices below the market. So that type of thing makes it harder for a company to go up, as it were. So for that reason, they're both very similar. They both have upside, big money. Big money could go into either of them. I think that though when big money moves into the space, it might, North American money at least, be more likely to move into Cameco and continue to give it a premium valuation. So for that reason and the others that I stated, Cameco wins the big fight. And remember, ladies and gentlemen, of course I own some of these. I own them because I like them. Um, and I own some winners and some losers and don't own some winners and don't own some losers. So the matchups were just meant to be designed to be as difficult as they could for me to choose. Thanks for watching, everyone. Remember, this is just round one and definitely not investment advice, just picks. And round two will be coming soon. The background will be similar to this one, so make sure you keep an eye out for that if you found this one interesting. And until then, or until some other video in between, have a great day.